Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Pagey, and one of the more tricky characters heading into James Gunn's new DC universe, at least one that hasn't been announced to have a project as of yet, is that of the Flash. And he really shouldn't be, regardless of what version of the Flash we're using. He should probably be one of the easier characters to insert because of how much history and, stuff you can use with the character. But the Flash is coming off quite a long run on TV, almost a decade, and a very recent run in theaters that wasn't that great. Now, of course, there were a few external issues and factors that came into play as to why that recent, venture into theaters might not have gone as well as hoped and honestly expected by Warner Brothers and the heads of DC. But it would be a worry in regards to jumping straight into using the character again, perhaps, at least, in the near future. But the Flash is, I would say, easily the fourth biggest hero in the DC catalog, and of course, also a major player in the Justice League. So it's a character that you would think would be in the plans somewhat early on into this new DC universe. Maybe not the first chapter, perhaps. That could be the room for Batman and Superman, but pretty soon after that. But of course, all the live-action Flash projects have been focused around one of the mantle holders of the Flash, that of course being Barry Allen, and there has been talk as to whether that should be the same for whatever James Gunn has planned with the character, so that will be the first point of discussion. Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, and Wally West. Those are the three main mantle holders that people will think of when you reference The Flash. And as I said before, Barry Allen has been the one in the live action space and really just most media outside of comics when it comes to The Flash, outside of the Justice League animated shows, where that was of course Wally West. Jay Garrick has been in animation as well as The Flash of the time period that he was set in, which was that Justice Society animated movie from a few years back. But that movie had Barry Allen going back in time to that period, so in that case, Barry was still the main Flash. So with all of that, should Barry Allen still be the Flash, or should there, be a change? Well, to start off with, I think you would rule out Jay Garrick straight away as the main character in a Flash movie, because I think you were just going to use Jay in a JSA movie whenever that time comes. It's sort of the same with Alan Scott. They are going to use him as the Green Lantern in a Green Lantern film. Whenever that time comes, he can, just show up elsewhere. So between Barry Allen and Wally West, who should be the Flash? And I think it should be Barry Allen. And yeah, I'm biased. I prefer Barry over Wally. But I also have a good reason why it should be Barry that starts as the Flash in this new cinematic universe for DC, rather than Wally jumping straight into being the Flash. And that's one main point: story. I personally think it doesn't work just chucking Wally straight into being the Flash without exploring the legacy that came before him and why he pushes so hard to be the best Flash and hero and person he can be, and also just making him the Flash rules out his time as Kid Flash, which he has appeared as in most media, but funnily enough hasn't been explored a ridiculous amount in that media, especially when it comes to being alongside the Teen Titans or just the Titans. James Gunn has already suggested that, about Titans as a group is something he would like to do and include, so surely he isn't thinking of not using Wally West within there. You'd have to think Wally West is going to be a part of it. But yeah, you could use Bart Allen, but that involves some weird time travel stuff to set that all up. So just make Kid Flash Wally and make the Flash Barry at the start and then connect their stories. But how do you do that? So I think with this Flash reboot, whenever it happens, we should have Barry a good amount of years into being the Flash, whether it's 5, whether it's 10, whatever it might be, but just not a master of his powers as of yet. He is mainly just taking on the rogues in Central City. There isn't these massive threats he's had to deal with, like an evil speedster or an overly superpowered being or an alien or whatever it is. And there's no Justice League at this point that's come together to fight these big things. It's just someone like a Captain Cold here who's, robbing a bank, or a Captain Boomerang here who's robbing a jewelry store. Issues like that. And maybe from time to time the rogues come together, but really most of the time he's just taking them one on or two on at a time. So the Flash is experienced, or Barry is experienced, very experienced actually, when it comes to that level of crime, but nothing that great. He hasn't really had to step up. And I think we could have Wally in this movie as a fanboy of the Flash. Maybe the Flash has rescued Wally when he was younger, maybe towards the beginning of the Flash's, time as the Flash, I guess, or Barry's time as the Flash. But he's also the nephew of Iris West, who is this, Wally is this massive fanboy of the Flash. Not just a fanboy, but a massive fanboy. And he loves everything about the Flash, and possibly he maybe lives with Iris for whatever reason that might be. Let's just say it's family issues for whatever reason. But Wally collects all of the Flash merchandise and all the newspaper clippings, and maybe even has a newspaper clipping of when he was saved by the Flash, and just everything to do with him. And you can even have it that Barry isn't with Iris. They're not romantically linked, they're not boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever it is, but Barry has this massive crush on Iris and maybe converses with her from time to time with CSI related things. because she's a journalist, and maybe he uses giving intel about the Flash to Wally as a way to maybe spend time with Iris, or at least put him in her good books. Like, I could definitely see, Barry going down that path and maybe getting the good books with Iris. But I think the culmination with the Wally side of this story would be him getting his powers towards the end of the movie, if not right towards the end. Whether that is similar to the comics, where it pretty much is just a replicant of how Barry got his powers in the lab with all the chemicals and stuff and the lightning, or maybe Wally gets hit with lightning from the Flash or something along those lines. I could easily see something like that happen. But I think having that place within this first Flash movie, when you aren't spending time on the Flash's origins and getting used to, him using his powers and all that, like, you take out like half an hour of a movie by that. So there is much more time to explore and develop Wally, with also still having Barry as the clear main character. But the movie isn't called Barry Allen, it's called The Flash, and Wally fits into that Flash lore and story. So it feels warranted that you would spend time developing Wally as well. And then that can stem into something revolving around the Titans or Teen Titans after this, or maybe it's something that's explored in a Flash sequel with the Flash and Kid Flash working side by side and seeing Barry as a mentor. But when it comes to the villain side of things, the Flash has one of the best rogues galleries in comics as a whole, and is pretty much alongside Batman as the best in the DC world. So there would be an argument you just use them, like you just use the rogues as the villains, which I necessarily wouldn't be against. But if it is a Flash that's a good amount of years into being the Flash, then I don't know if that's 100% the right way to go. I think you have to have Barry level up or step up. Maybe don't use the term level up, but step up to the next level and deal with something a bit more large. Now, there is a rumored Rogue series in development. It hasn't been confirmed. It's just rumored, so that's still yet to wait and see if that's actually a real thing. And that could fill the void for focus on the Rogues group, at least those like Captain Colds, Captain Boomerangs, Golden Glider, Heatwave, those characters. So maybe it should be a bigger threat as a villain. Of course, Reverse Flash is going to be the one that many jump to when it comes to a bigger threat as a villain, and I definitely wouldn't be against it, but it's whether it's the right villain for this particular movie and what you are specifically addressing. I think maybe using someone like, and this would just be fun, like Abracadabra, that'd be really cool, using all that future tech to mess with the Flash, and visually it could be very, very cool and fun. And he is also someone that would know a lot about the Flash as well, even maybe the fact that Barry Allen is the Flash, which you can play and toy around with. And of course, he does slot into that Rogues gallery as well, so technically a Rogue is still the villain for the film. And I think that would help play into like the zany side of the Flash villains as well. If not Abracadabra and not Reverse Flash, if he isn't maybe suitable for this particular film, another crazy villain like a Gorilla Grodd would be good as well. I think just playing into that fun and weird side of the Flash would be the way to go. I think, especially when like the Flash movie that we just had, while as I said, I still liked it, it dealt with the more serious side, like that Flashpoint aspect, while not having Reverse Flash there either. So I think maybe being very lighthearted and sort of fun in tone, this movie would differ immediately from that first Flash movie that we just recently got. But if you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments in regards to villains, because I'm all ears. Now, fan cast. This is always going to be a big thing, because let's be honest, it would be a shock if Ezra Miller continues as the Flash. Honestly, it'd be mind-boggling, I think, at this point. So with the fan cast, I honestly don't have any that I would fight for to be cast. I know Lucas Till is one that always gets thrown around because he looks like Barry Allen. I don't love it. Like, I'm not going to fight for it or anything like that. It's mainly just because it's said so much. It drowns you and you just sort of get sick of it after a while. But I don't dislike it. There's a lot of fan casts which get thrown around, which I just heavily dislike just because so many people say it and it gets annoying. But I don't dislike it. I'll be fine with Lucas Till getting cast. But I think an important thing is that Barry should seem like a normal dude. He just should seem like a normal guy. He's just, cast a normal looking guy. I'm not saying Lucas Till doesn't look normal, but maybe he looks a bit, he's like that next stage up. Like, Barry is meant to be this average guy who gets powers. Like, sure, he is smart. He's very smart. However, this is dealing with like after the Flash being the Flash, or Barry being the Flash for a few years. So he should still be like athletic in appearance. You wouldn't cast some like geeky dude. Maybe at first you could, but if we're dealing with the Flash a few years into his run, ignore the pun. But yeah, he should, have built some stuff on him. So he should be somewhat, or if not very athletic in appearance and look like he runs a lot. So maybe even someone with like the build of a sprinter would be cool, but also probably hard. That's probably hard to cast specifically. Now, I think that George McKay fan cast, I think that's probably the best I've seen in regards to someone that sort of meets all criteria. In regards to someone who comes off like a sciencey guy of sorts, but also like a person that could fit that mold of a superhero that runs fast. I think he's maybe the best fan cast that I've seen. But you don't know until those options get laid out in front of you. Like, I wouldn't have thought of him unless someone else had said it. So yeah, it's a wait and see. I'm sure there'd be a casting process around it, but I don't mind that casting. I think that's probably the best one I've heard so far. In regards to Wally West, it depends on his age. In the comics, Wally's like, I think like 12 or 13 when he gets his powers. Like, he's still a kid. So I would guess logically you'd cast around that age, or you'd max out at around 15. So you'd probably get a newcomer maybe for that role. Like, I don't have any fan cast ideas for that side of things, at least. I mean, it could be someone that's like, you know, if like Stranger Things was coming out now, maybe it's someone from Stranger Things or whatever the new Stranger Things is. Like, I know Percy Jackson is like, I guess what's going to be the new Stranger Things, whatever, like that show. Maybe the lead guy from that show, whatever his name is, he could be Wally West. But even then, he might be too old by that point. I think you want to max out at 15, because then you can slowly develop him through the Teen Titans, then the Titans, and then him becoming the Flash. So that's probably, you don't want to go too old with Wally. But here's the big thing. We talked about before that the Flash has just come off a decade or an almost decade long run with the show and a recent movie. So how do you make this reboot different from the TV show and also the recent movie? Now, with the TV show, I think the clear thing is you don't start from the beginning. You don't start him, you know, getting his powers in a slow origin thing there. I don't think it's necessary. And also another important thing is, and this sort of goes along with the movie, make it solo Flash, just by himself. It's a bit like almost like he's a bit of a loner. And even the movie didn't have the Flash by himself. So a somewhat experienced Flash with no team around him, I think would be great, because this is before Barry connects with the other members of the Flash family, you know, starting with Kid Flash or maybe Jay Garrick, and he builds from this point. So he should be lonely at this point, and then it builds from here. And I think one thing is that you have to really highlight Barry loves being the Flash. I think it's an important thing as well. I don't think the movie really overly highlighted that. Like, I think that was one thing the movie sort of skipped out on a bit, but he was also dealing with the grief side of things, I guess. So maybe he hadn't explored loving it too much. But I think it was one thing the movie clearly missed. So the TV show, that was always something that the TV show did pretty well, was showing that Barry liked being the Flash and he liked these powers, as long as people weren't dying around him. So I think that's something that this reboot should really like showcase, that Barry loves doing what he's doing. And to differ specifically from the movie, I think a focus on the Flash in Central City. There are small parts in the early parts in the movie that like that we spend time in Central City with the Flash's presence, and we see how people react to the Flash. But we leave as soon as that starts, and we never really go back to it. So I'd like to see like the day-to-day of Barry as the Flash in Central City, and the balance that Barry sort of has to keep up throughout the entire film, or at least a good chunk of it. I think that'd be nice to see. The movie did some of it, as I said, but it was hardly in it, and then just quickly turned into like a multiverse movie with Batman and all that, which I still really liked, but I said it clearly, like even when I was talking about the movie initially, it was something I was a bit disappointed in, was the lack of Central City. Now, James Gunn in The Flash, I'm not sure if he actually likes the character. He's never really talked too much about it. Like, he's talked a lot about Superman and Batman and all these other characters, and even Wonder Woman, but nothing really about The Flash, so it's sort of hard to tell whether he likes it too much. I could see this being something that he hands to someone else to really develop for the most part, and just give notes in regards to how it ties to his world. So I would be interested to see who that would be given to. The Flash isn't someone they necessarily, like, they have to be 100% perfect for it, but they have to understand the tone and what the intention with the Flash story is. So that's got to be the right person that it's given to. And you could make an error there, but James Gunn has advisors around him. I'm sure he has someone like Joshua Williamson, who's done the recent stuff, even someone like a Jeff Johns or a Mark Waid, or even a Grant Morrison. I mean, he's ripping off a lot of, not ripping off, but he's like sourcing from Grant Morrison a lot, who has had great runs with the Flash, so, and knows a lot about the character and the multiverse as well. So I'd be very surprised if James Gunn dropped the ball with this, at least in regards to maybe selecting the right person to deal with it, even if James Gunn himself isn't a massive massive fan of the character. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this. Do you have any fan casts I didn't mention? Do you have any different ideas for villains and, you know, ways to handle this movie? Do you think Wally West should be the Flash? You know, I think Barry should, and I'd probably just straight up disagree with you, but you might have a good point, so let me know. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.